1. Recently, I have begun a dog walking and pet sitting business that I run out of my house with express permission from my landlord. I've worked with animals for years, and I'm grateful to finally be able to do it for a halfway decent living. That being said, I've been much busier than I anticipated, and as such, I've been a little stressed out overextending myself. I even had a nightmare about forgetting that I had to watch a dog, and the dog was left alone at their house for several days. Even though it was just a nightmare, this prompted me to get more serious about my organization and scheduling, so I wouldn't miss anything. Nowadays, my schedule is rock solid, and I've been super on top of it. I only say that so you guys can understand the immense confusion I felt when my doorbell rang at 2 p.m. on Monday, and I heard a dog barking outside. I got my dogs calmed down and answered the door. On my doorstep is an elderly woman, maybe 80 years old, holding a very cute West Highland Terrier. For anyone not familiar, they're the dog on the Caesar food dog package. I'm honestly so confused by her being there that my mouth does not form words. I just sort of stand there, opening and closing my mouth like a fish out of water, while my brain is just screaming, "You forgot! You forgot!" After a moment, she graciously saves me from myself and talks first.
"Hello, I'm Little Old Lady, and I'm here to drop off my dog for boarding."
At this point, I'm almost positive that my nightmares have literally come true, and I have straight up deleted a dog from my short-term memory. But as I'm racking my brain, I cannot remember ever seeing this dog or woman before. Hi, who's this little guy?
This is Chico. I was hoping to leave him with you for the weekend while I visit my grandson.
Okay, hoping, that's an interesting word. Now I'm less anxious, but more confused. Okay, have we spoken about Chico before?
Oh no, but your neighbor Laura said you watched dogs, so I just brought him over.
Okay, now this is making more sense. Laura was my previous neighbor who had recently moved out. I had watched her dogs dozens of times, and she was always very kind to give my name out to people who were looking for dog sitters. Sometimes, however, she did treat me as on call, in the sense that she would call me as she was pulling out of her driveway to tell me she was leaving for the weekend and I would need to watch the dogs. She would play it off like she was so frazzled and forgot, but it started to get old after the third or fourth time. At this point, I have a little old lady with her energetic dog in my porch, and still more questions than answers, so I invite her in while I try to get to the bottom of it. Come to find out, she was a friend of Laura's mother, whom I had never met. Laura had a couple of my business cars at her house, and apparently, the last time her mother was visiting, she took a couple of them to give to her friends. Apparently Laura inherited her entitlement from her mother, as her mother told little old lady I was available any time for dog sitting. Literally any time. Worse yet, because Laura was my next-door neighbor, Laura's mom figured out my address and gave it to little old lady. Because of that behavior, she had the impression that I was a dog boarding facility, and she was just as confused as I was to arrive at a normal-looking house. After we got it all explained, little old lady and I had a pretty big laugh about it. She was super apologetic and sweet, but I knew it really wasn't her fault, so there was no harm done for her. She was just a sweet old lady who got a little confused. Unfortunately, because I was already booked, I couldn't watch Chico, but good news. Little old lady determined she could just visit her grandson this weekend, and I went ahead and booked her for it. Chico and my dogs had plenty of time to socialize while little old lady and I were chatting, and we were becoming fast friends. I think I may have just fallen backwards into a great client. Still, I was a little miffed, so I called Laura to please ask her mother to not tell people that they can just come by any time. Laura was legitimately confused as to why it was an issue. After a few minutes of going round in circles, I simply said, "I can't watch any dogs that I don't know," and left it at that. While I wish that was the end of it, 2 days later, Wednesday, yesterday at the time of this post, Laura calls me to tell me that she has just left her house and could I please watch the dogs. I gently remind her that she had just moved 3 hours away and I was no longer her neighbor. She just gave a half-hearted, "Oh," and hung up. God bless her. 2. I, 23 and female, work as an assistant in some kind of charity, focusing on the history of suburbs and changing neighborhoods of Paris, France. Basically, my work is to take pictures of monuments and architecture that tell the story of the evolution of these cities that surround the capital. It's interesting work, and I quite enjoy it, even though it's very badly paid and very disorganized. I also create visuals for various events and projects relating to this organization. Today, though, my work was to manage the entrance of a building in which my organization was hosting an event, a theater festival of sorts. I was asked to scan the people's health pass, a mandatory QR code which attests that a person has been vaccinated against COVID, and guide them to the rooms where the various shows are taking place. At first, everything was going okay. Some people were obviously grumpy when I asked them to put on their masks and show me their pass, but no one was actually rude. At one point, a family of 4, a mother, father, and their 2 kids showed up. The mother will be EM, our entitled mom. I said hi to them, and asked them if they were coming in for a show, to which EM answered yes. She started making her way to the entrance, to which I simply stepped closer to her and asked, "Ma'am, I just have to check your pass." I was cordial and smiling. At the moment, I didn't even register none of them were wearing masks. To my simple request, EM answered, "We just learned that we didn't have our passes." This didn't really make sense, because the only reason you wouldn't have a pass would be if you didn't get vaccinated. In this case, nobody would come up and inform you of the fact that you don't have a pass, because, well, you didn't do what is required to get one. But anyway, I didn't get the chance to think of this or even respond to her, as she started to get agitated and yell at me and my colleague. "My daughter is playing in a show today. Are you going to keep me from seeing my daughter play?" I was taken aback and again didn't get a chance to respond to her. "Do you not realize you are excluding people? This is social exclusion. And you are playing health police. Aren't you ashamed of yourselves?" At this point I reacted, rather angrily. I know I didn't handle the situation correctly, but I was never good at staying calm when getting yelled at. Also, I must point that handling public is absolutely not something I'm used to doing. And I was never told I would have to do such a thing when I took on the job. So yeah, being the hot-headed mess that I am, I started yelling myself. "Ma'am, I'm simply doing my job. I don't particularly like having to tell people what to do, and I especially don't like getting screamed at by total strangers. I'm doing what I've been asked to do. This is a social event. The law requires that people present a valid pass and wear masks to attend." At this point, a wave of people started to rush towards my colleague and I tried to manage scanning them and pointing them in the right direction while the woman was still screaming. "This is an outrage. Are we going to stay silent regarding this? Are we going to keep on being puppets? Are you happy with what you're doing to people?" I was trembling, and people were giving strange looks, probably not really understanding what was going on. It was very embarrassing. Eventually, I yelled at the woman and her husband to move it, since they were disturbing everyone. Then the EM insulted me, but I didn't really register it. Her guy still gave me a salute, I guess mocking me for playing health police, and flipped me the bird in front of the crowd and his own children. I kind of lost it at this point and very loudly told him to stick it up your fucking ass, you donkey. I know this was absolutely unprofessional of me. The lady I was trying to scan at the moment told me, "There's no reason to get so worked up." To which I answered, "Try and react gracefully when someone gives you the finger. Enjoy the show." She wasn't pleased with my response, and I understand why. I was so rattled. The family ended up leaving, after all, leaving my colleague and I dumbstruck. My colleague told me that she was used to people like this, having worked at a Burger King for years and all. She also told me not to be too hard on myself, and that desensitization about these things only happens after multiple encounters with such people. I called my boss, telling her what happened. "Remember EM telling me her daughter was playing in one of the shows? Well, it turns out it was a fucking lie. She was nobody's mother." My boss asked every female comedian if their mother and siblings were attending, and nobody knew them. 3. This takes place a couple years ago pre-COVID. I had a bus driver in high school that wasn't necessarily entitled, just loved to enforce her power over the students. This is a couple years ago now at least, so some details may be a bit hazy, but I can give the general idea of her behavior. She liked to make rules and then say there were district rules and that she had to enforce them. The thing is, I know no such rules existed. The main rule was that she wanted all students to not use phones. But what teenager these days put down their phone for anything? Anyway, I was fine not using my phone. I really don't use mine that much. My issue was that she was lying about it. If you want a rule, make it a rule yourself. Don't say it's a district rule. This was a pretty minor thing, to be honest, more of an annoyance. One day we pulled away from the school, and shortly after, a student asked her to turn off the AC since she was pretty cold. Then the bus driver said something to the effect of, "If you don't like my bus, you don't have to ride it." Straight up turned the bus around, literally everyone audibly sighed and said, "Oh my god," and kicked the student off. One rainy morning, a student was running behind, getting to the bus stop at the top of a hill. She let everyone on and then started driving towards the student, but instead of stopping, she just waved and drove by, leaving the kid in the rain. I don't quite remember if this was later in the afternoon when she was taking us home, but she said, "Riding the bus is a privilege, not a right." That's an excuse. But I have to disagree with this. People need an education to get into any good-paying job, easily, early in life. Therefore, have a right to a safe and reliable transportation to get that required education. There's been many more instances of outrageous behavior that I just don't remember, and every time I told my dad what she did. I was a really quiet student, and since I didn't bother her, she didn't bother me. My dad kept complaining to the school, and they must have finally had enough of it, because for a while the bus driver calmed down. She did start again, though. Surprisingly, we were never late because of her. We always made it to school on time, but I'm so glad to never have to see her again. I felt bad for all the students she did petty things to. A number of other things she did was she'd have the boys sit on one side of the bus and girls on the other. You couldn't sit where you wanted either. You had to go to the first available seat, head towards the back, and sit two to a seat. You had to sit in the first available seat for your gender. No ifs, ands, or buts. There was actually a time when we were late, now that I think about it. A student did something she didn't like, so she literally held us all hostage on the bus at the front of the school and wouldn't let any student off the bus until the school admin came out to talk to one or two of the students. Even though we were high schoolers, she wouldn't let anybody get on the bus to go home with a friend if they didn't have a written letter from the principal. I can kind of understand this, though. She probably didn't want to be held liable if something were to happen. Although I guess she was already accountable for all of us. The point is, if you wanted to go home with a friend, better get a note from the principal first. She also wouldn't help any students when it came to figuring out what bus they rode. If you asked her, "Does this bus go by such and such an area?" she would respond with, "Go to the office and ask." She also said this if you asked if she knew what bus went where. Nothing exactly wrong with this, she was just being petty. You weren't allowed any food on the bus, which is understandable, but part of her job is to keep the bus clean. Anyway, one time someone had a bag of food in their hand, and she made the student throw it out before letting them on the bus. The student even told her that he wasn't going to eat it, but she wouldn't budge, not even letting him put it in his backpack. 4. Bit of background info. I have a badly damaged knee. Cartilage behind the kneecap is busted, and thus have to use a crutch often to go places. After 7 years of wearing the same glasses, I finally saved up the money to get my eyes checked, and today I went to my favorite glasses store with a prescription to order my new glasses. At the store, it was rather empty, and 2 employees were calmly doing their job. Sadly, the model I had found online was no longer available, so the employees let me look around at the models still in the store so I could pick one out, and told me to just pick one out and then feel free to sit back down at the desk where they helped me earlier. While I was doing this, suddenly the store got busy, so both employees had their hands full. It didn't take long for me to find a model I liked, so soon I already sat back down, and while I was waiting, I figured I'd check some things on my phone, using the free Wi-Fi the store has for the customers. Now enter Karen. Karen didn't look like a Karen. but it's the inner Karen that counts. While I was sitting down, scrolling a couple of things on my phone, suddenly someone tapped my shoulder, so I looked up. Karen was standing right next to me, a bit too close for my liking, and actually in between me and my crutch, which I had to put aside in an awkward angle, so it would not be in anyone's way. Karen was smiling at me, not a real smile though, one of those, "I pity you for being a lower human being than me" kind of smile. We all know the one. The first words coming from her mouth were, "Why are you just sitting here playing on your phone?" At that moment, I was a tad confused, so I gestured at nothing in particular and say, "Waiting?" That was a mistake. I think most of you can already guess what kind of response I got from her. "Waiting? Don't you see the store is full of people? Get off your lazy bum and do your job." Luckily, it clicked in my mind that she, for some reason, was under the impression I work there. So I decided to give her my friendliest smile, the kind you can see even with a mask, and reply, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm a paying customer like you, and I'm waiting to be helped." After which I show her the model of glasses I have chosen and the prescript for my eyes. Now, any rational person would realize here they were in the wrong and would either just move on or at least apologize. Nope. Somehow it was my fault for her misjudgment, and she went off on me. "How dare you sit here as if you're an associate, then? If you're truly a paying customer, why are you not standing in line like the rest of us?" I do my best to stay calm, even though I am nearly shaking with the adrenaline that comes with such situations, and tell her, "I am crippled. My crutch is right behind you. Standing for too long is not good on me, and the associates know I am here and told me I could sit down after I chose a frame model. Now here's something fucked up." Karen turns to look at my crutch, which is a standard aluminium hospital crutch, and then turns back to look at me with the words, "You don't look crippled. You must be faking it for pity points." Now, there is no way I can really prove to her that my knee is indeed busted, as it is all internal, and I don't wear any special braces for it, as none of the ones I tried really worked anyway, but luckily I didn't need to. This is when one of the store employees walked up to us. "Ma'am, we've been able to hear everything you said to this lady so far, and would like to request you either leave her alone or go to my colleague so he can help you, or leave the store. We don't appreciate such behavior in this store." Luckily, this is where Karen just deflated and backtracked. She huffed for a moment and walked up to the counter to be helped by the other employee, and I got to arrange the order for my new glasses. 5. I work as a college admin at a community college. We see the worst and best in people, including college students that can't read, helicopter parents to a 19-year-old, students who lie so blatantly it's hilarious, to heartwarming such as homeless students who overcome difficulties, get their degree, and show up later as a very successful individual. We had a younger female student, about 16 years old. She was also a part of the high school and early college academy on our campus, and had failed all of her college-level classes. I got a call from the student's mother, livid. She'd just seen her daughter's college class grades that all indicate she's failed them. Mom wants to make an appointment with the VP to prove that her daughter has passed her classes, as she has documentation and wants the grades changed to B's right now. I asked her to provide the documents to me, scan her fax. What I get are several poorly plagiarized documents that have the college's logo, try to anyway, with the poorly plagiarized misspelled names of the instructors, all with the same message. "Daughter has passed my class. The F on her record was a mistake," signed with the instructor's name. As well as a really bad plagiarized fax cover sheet from our A&R office stating they received the letters from the daughter's teachers, and the F's recorded were a mistake, and they would all be changed to B's right away. Holy crap! It was so bad. She could have at least spelled the instructors' names correctly. It was not difficult at all to write to the instructors with a scan of the document with their alleged note and signature, and ask them, "Is this your signature? Did you write this? And can you provide me with a sample of your signature?" Each instructor asked me, "Are you serious?" The necessary proof came in really fast. Day of the meeting with my VP, mom, and devious student arrive. VP asks student, "Are you certain you received these from your instructors?"
Yep.
As she's texting.
My daughter is not a liar. How dare you accuse her of dishonesty?
Blah, blah, blah. VP shows mom and daughter the plagiarized documents they provided.
This is what you provided to us, correct? Yes, it is.
Student is still texting. VP then shows her the college's real letterhead with real logo, printed emails from all the instructors, and the instructor's real signature. Mom says nothing but looks horrified. Student says nothing and holds her blank expression.
So, do you want to change your story? Nope.
She's still texting. After a serious come-to-Jesus moment, Mom apologizes profusely and is visibly shaken and crying. Student is still texting, no change in expression. Mom and daughter leave. Mom's in tears, and the daughter... yeah, she's walking and texting. The student was expeditiously kicked out of the college high school. Personally, I think this girl is sociopathic. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 38. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like and subscribe. And if you have a story of your own you'd like to send in, please do send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. That's kingofthecities@gmail.com. And you can find that in the description of pretty much every video. And I don't believe any shoutouts for the next few days, so that's all fine there. Anything I need to bring up? I don't believe so. Right, this is Thursday. I will hopefully see you this weekend for a spoopy stream on Saturday. Apart from that, I think that's all for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.